I do this. How you doing there, friends? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome into our webinar. My name is Jeff Fritz. I'm a program manager at Microsoft, and I want to talk to you today with my friends from Gap about modernizing your manufacturing apps for Azure and AI, some of the benefits that you're going to see from them, and we're going to proceed through this and show you some actionable things that you can work on. So I'm joined today by my friends Ken and Oscar from Gap. We'll bring them on in just a minute to talk more about what we can do to start leveling up our processes. But first, I want to make sure we talk about what you can expect from today's webinar. All right? I see a hand up out there. We'll come to that in just a second. So we want to make sure that you get a little bit of clarity on the benefits and the process that you're going to go through when you want to modernize your applications and get them ready for the cloud and get them ready for AI. All right. We also want to make sure that you get set for your first wins. We want to make sure that you land on your feet. You have information that you need coming out of this webinar that's going to get you success right away so you can continue working through your processes to modernize and ensure that you have a good path forward. And finally, of course, we want to make sure that you have some good next steps to take. Right? It's one thing to talk about modernizing and getting new features into the mix, but we want to make sure you have a paved path with some next steps that you can follow, some links, some documentation that you can follow up on that's going to make you successful. All right. Before we get too far into this, I want to take a quick poll. I like doing these and getting some interaction from you out there in the chat room. So right now in your applications, where's your critical data stored? Is it A, mostly on premises, B, hybrid, a little bit on premises, a little bit in the cloud, or C, mostly in the cloud? Drop me a letter response there in chat, and we'll take a look and talk about that briefly. I see a hand up. Can you drop a comment in chat there, and we'll get back to and make sure that we can address your question there. I see Rafaela is here from Brazil, 19 years old. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. And the answers here. I see a bunch of folks that are mostly in the cloud. I also see a number of folks here in chat with those A responses, and they're mostly on-prem. That's what we were kind of suspecting, and we were going to go through, and we want to make sure we talk a little bit more about. So thank you so much for that feedback. Now I want to bring on my friend Ken from Growth Acceleration Partners, or GAP, to tell us a little bit more about their partnership with Microsoft and what we can expect going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. And first of all, pleasure to be here. My name is Kenneth Rivera. I'm from Costa Rica, and I'm the Vice President of Engineering at GAP. And GAP is a consulting and technology services company. We provide custom software, data modernization, and modernization solution, which is what we're going to talk today. And with me, we have also my good friend, Oscar Poveda. He's a solution architect who will guide us through the technical demo at the end of the presentation. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do as a high level. GAP has been with Microsoft together more than 30 years in partnership. We are Microsoft Solutions Partner certified. And actually, years before everything started, when Microsoft invested in our AI migrator, we have a deterministic AI migrator from VB6 to C#, which was one of our first products, and it's had many months of engineering time working on this deterministic AI migrator. We'll tell you a little bit more about it in the presentation, but it's fantastic. So it's everything together with Microsoft.
Now, hang on, Ken. You say you're using this term deterministic AI. What do you mean by deterministic AI?
Yeah, fantastic question. Deterministic is when we get an input and every single time we get the exact same output. And that is fantastic. Okay. We all know AI. We love it. But you notice that generative AI is a little bit moody. One they give you one answer, the other one they give you the other one.
Moody's a great way to describe it, yes.
So deterministic is quite the opposite. It will give you the rule book every single time.
Okay. All right.
So, and let's talk a little bit about this modernization dilemma, right? If you are here, probably you have a legacy application. So let's start with that. And I want to bring my friend Oscar into the conversation a little bit. How many times we have seen these valuable applications hosted in local servers, as you saw by the pool, on-prem, hybrid, sometimes even in the desktop with no connectivity outside. So it's part of the risks.
Yeah, Ken, gosh, I've been talking to a number of customers where the apps are running on Chris's machine over there in the corner office, or even in the corner cube. Don't touch it, because the whole business runs off of Chris's machine over there. And I'm seeing some of the things here on the slide, and they hit home with that type of scenario.
Absolutely. Limited integration, like sometimes not even backup, right? Like I've seen
Yeah,
even
yeah.
copies and the backup is in the same machine, which is
I,
scary.
Chris, fortunately, in a couple of the cases that I've talked to, backs things up to a USB drive, right, and takes it out and leaves it in their car over the weekend, and that's still kind of, we can do better than that.
Absolutely, we can do better. The other part, and talking a little bit with Oscar. Oscar, from the code, from the ground, how often have you seen these kind of effects on the inventory application? Do they know what they have?
Yeah, and this is actually the other elephant in the room. You simply
Hmm.
can move what you don't know you have. What does this mean? That we need clear answers to critical questions like what are the dependencies and what's even running in there? In a complex environment, apps often rely on hidden services, shared databases, or old components that are easy to miss. Sound familiar, Jeff?
Yes, right, and the dependencies question, right? That's like a hidden problem that I've heard some CTOs look at. They want to look at the entire bill of materials for their resources and software in their organization, and those indirect dependencies that their applications are referring to and using, they can sneak up and bite us.
Oh, yeah, that's a very complex problem to solve. And let me bring another point. You know, that knowledge, often composed of critical workarounds, system history, and unspoken rules, resides only with key long tenure team members. When these individuals leave, that essential knowledge walks out the door, leading to significant project delays, unexpected failures, and a costly need for reverse engineering. That's another pain, Jeff.
Oh, right. The folks that have been around for 10, 15 years, that have worked with and know the ins and outs of our legacy applications, they're so valuable. Their knowledge is valuable to the organization. And it's not just that, oh, they're out on vacation for some time, but when these folks retire, like some of them might be getting to the end of their career, and they're gonna retire. They want to go home. And yeah, that's a big loss.
Indeed.
And by the way, Jeff, you have seen in the code, you can see the different development styles. Applications with more than 20 years have 3 or 4 different styles of development inside.
Right, as an engineer, as a software engineer, when you can read and see the growth patterns, it's almost like rings on a tree that you can see exactly how an application grew and different techniques and different code styles. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. So, and this is where we can help. And at Gap, we have this amazing technology, our hybrid AI migrators, which is part deterministic and the other part is generative AI. And we take this valuable legacy application, most likely, and I put some technologies in there, BV6, Classic, ASP, PowerBuilder, C# Winforms. Some of them are 15, 20 years apart. Some of them are not even in support anymore from the vendor. And
Yeah.
that actually makes us wonder, hey, how we're gonna run this business, right? And then we use our deterministic AI, which is a migrator that can take very large and complicated inputs. And when I say that, let me double click on here for a second, is our deterministic AI can take very large context. And when I say large, we have migrated up to 8 million lines of code application at once. Of course, it takes a while, but it doesn't choke. It understands the entire application end to end.
It's a process, and that migration is going to be much faster than if we did it by hand.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the benefits because
Yeah.
the fact that it's doing it by machine is way faster than doing it manual, of course.
Mm.
And then at the end, we can move that application into the cloud. Right now, we have our favorite Blazor technology as one of the destinations to the cloud, and we can deploy it directly to Azure. That enables the business, not let's talk about outside technology, the business can access to AI features, live data, information, Power BI. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, some of those new features that we want to take a look at and we want to start using that are in the cloud, they're too far out of reach with that old PowerBuilder or VB6 application. So this is a good thing to move forward. And then there's a culture that comes with that as well.
Absolutely. The culture is the interesting part, and we're going to talk a little bit also as well. Like modernizing is not only about technology, it's also about the process and the people. So with that, let me guide you through a whole application that is currently one of our customers so you can see the entire journey. And the first step, of course, we understand in dealing with the legacy application. In this particular case, I wanted to share a story of a aviation company who runs their entire inventory, build system, call system, and even the support and sales into one custom application. They built it 20 years ago in VB6. And of course, it's super valuable. They have been an entire business on top of that. They have multiple development teams. Right now, they only have 2 developers left. The language is complex to get developers on VB6. They have very complex dependency. Imagine installing that application and connecting to your processes in the factory, right? So it's very complicated. This particular customer was looking for an alternative because everybody in the market was recommending a rewrite of the application. There's no equivalent, but it was expected to be at least 2 years, and that's too long for a business to stop.
2 years. Yeah, I'm not going to press pause on application development modernization over the course of 2 years. Like, we're going to be able to get the business to process and continue working, but if we need to patch and update, 2 years is a really long time, Ken. I don't know of many organizations that can handle that.
No, it's time to market, losing market share, losing probability, and also let's talk. They're continuing the desk, right? We wanted to bring it to the cloud, and this is the other part where we can help. The second thing that we did was we apply our hybrid approach, which is a mix of 3 things: deterministic AI, the generative AI, and our proven methodology. We have experience of over 20 years migrating these kind of applications. We have many proven examples of that. And we are 50% faster compared to a manual rewrite. One of the main examples on this particular application, we started in January, Jeff, and by September, they were in user acceptance testing deployed in Azure. So imagine, from 2 years to 9 months.
9 months and user acceptance testing, right? Now, user acceptance testing, very important part of the process. We got to make sure that the folks that use the current system are still good and they're up and ready to go with the new system. That's tremendous to hear that in 9 months. I mean, you're going to be able to get by not necessarily pressing pause, but not taking any updates for a shorter amount of time. 60-70% of time saving. That's a big enhancement there. Okay, can you tell me a little bit more here?
Yeah, absolutely. In the deterministic, let me talk for a few seconds about it. The deterministic is rule-based. So whenever one input comes, the output is going to be exactly the same, which is a great advantage if you're migrating a large application. This application was 500,000 lines of code. And imagine you don't want to have hallucinations when you're migrating an application. You want every single time that you see a problem, it gets resolved in the same way, right? That brings clarity, understanding to your code, to your application. And also you guarantee that you migrate your business rules, which are critical. Those are the valuable part, and you translate it to the new language. So that's one of the main advantages of the deterministic. And the second part on the generative is once we pass the deterministic part, we can accelerate with GenAI. GenAI is fantastic to creativity, to bring and update the code, modernize certain parts, rewrite, restructure. So that's where we approach all the generative to go full speed.
Okay. All right.
And the third step, as you can imagine, we talk a little bit about UAT. The customer currently is in UAT, but the wonder of this is we don't stop there. We don't need to do this serial. Actually, the UAT on the cloud and the enhanced features that we're adding, we can do it in parallel, right? This current customer, while they're user acceptance testing, we are adding dashboards. The CFO love the fact that they can have a Power BI dashboard on the cloud connected directly to Excel. We are adding with AI Foundry a chatbot specifically that contains the support information, so the agents can chat with somebody who understands and get context of their actual application with their data and their documentation, which is fantastic. It saves a lot of time for the support agents.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I mean, Power BI is great that they're going to be able to build their own little dashboards, be able to generate their own little reports, and what CTO, what CIO doesn't love carrying around a tablet with that hands-on instant insight into how are things going, how's the application working, how's our manufacturing processes running, and have that insight. That's tremendous for folks to have. But bring in a chatbot. Like I've seen chatbots, of course, on Copilot, Microsoft.com, ChatGPT, Gemini, and so forth. Like these are really cool to have. I've seen folks try and do chat interactions for their customer service, but Ken, you're describing a little bit more in depth, being able to chat and ask questions of not just my application but my business processes, and being able to groom and see a little bit of what's going on inside of that with a little bit of AI insight.
Absolutely. And one of the main advantages is this is sitting on the customer cloud. So the information is secure, it's not exposed, it's identity based. So only the persons who are authorized get access to that. And having a chatbot who knows all the documentation of your process is fantastic for adding a specific drill down questions.
Okay. All right. So that's going to really help. That's going to really help my, like you said, my front end customer service folks. But then to be able to ask questions and kind of get that on the fly reporting insight for folks that are third level or management, very valuable resource to have.
Absolutely, absolutely. And at this point, Jeff, you get the full benefits of the cloud, right? Elasticity, security. Like imagine if you have a peak of sales, you can just click and add more instances. That's the dream, right? And let me talk about then the final step, which is stay healthy and secure. We call it this because this is the part where it's a little bit of change on habits, right? Once we take that legacy application into the modern world, we wanted the customers to continue to stay there in the top of the technology. So we try to provide support, consultation along the way, so you don't fall back. And that includes making sure that you adapt the current and latest, that you understand what are the changes on the stack and the technology, integrate and update. You know, AI changes every day. So we have the opportunity to also provide support on that. And finally, the entire process, the development process is unified in continuous delivery and continuous integration, right? So that means as soon as they get a feature up, automatically get deployed into the cloud.
There's something to be said about this. Is where the culture shift happens, right? We've let a little bit of technical debt happen. We've let, we've passed on some upgrade to new versions of technologies. We've passed on some ideas, and we want to get updated now. We need to get updated now. So to take that approach and those steps, that's a big thing to do here. Continuous integration, continuous delivery are a massive step for all organizations to take. That's only going to make their applications and their processes better, and it's going to lead to improvements in those OKRs down the road. Those key results are going to get better because you're going to get better insights, you're going to get better growth of your applications to give you those capabilities to have insight into your organization, your processes, and decide how to improve. Ken, I love hearing this. Okay, let's hear a little bit more here.
Absolutely, and let me paint the entire picture. So I went through the stages with you, and imagine this is a scenario for this customer. From the point 1 to the point 5, we expected to have done it in 12 months. That is 1 year to change your legacy technology into a modern with new processes. And as you can see, many of the services could be implemented along the way. Now, as part of our business model, we provide different levels for different kind of customers. In this case, this customer wanted the entire end-to-end service, but we can stop and license our tools so your team can do it, or we can accompany you with consultation service along the way. our mission in life is to make sure that that legacy application gets a new life into the new modern stack.
There's something to be said about the planned. We're only going to engage for as long as you need us to get the application migrated, and you've got your tools and your stuff, and you can go off on your own and continue working here. Getting that little bit of staff augmentation, those tools that are going to help you get there, so valuable, and really it's those steps that so many organizations need to just get over that hurdle.
Yeah, and final thought at the bottom of the slide, but very important. Everything is secure and compliant running in your Azure tenant. So you are under control, which is a key component. Right now, we know companies are, this is the secret sauce, and they want it to maintain under control. So that's critical for them.
Absolutely. No more yellow stickies with passwords on your display in your desk. We want to make sure that things are secure by default, and you're going to have good hygiene, good secure culture going forward. Okay.
Yeah. So and now is I wanted to bring that into a live with Oscar. Let me reintroduce again Oscar Podera, our amazing solution architect. Oscar is gonna guide us through an actual demo. So how does it look like? How does it look like at the end deployed? So Oscar, all yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken and Jeff. Well, we all know the story. You have legacy applications, the backbone of your operations that are reliable, functional, and frankly, indispensable, but they are stuck. So, what if I told you there's a way to give these mission-critical applications a new lease on life? What if you could take your outdated client-server app and make it instantly accessible on the web and do it fast and easy? How does it sound, Jeff?
It's exactly the kind of thing that I'm looking for. The combination of instant web enablement, but also kind of take our time and make sure things get there properly. I'm looking forward to hearing.
Well, that's precisely what we're going to dive into today. Forget the multi-year migration projects. Forget the risky bug-ridden rewrites. We're talking about a path to modern web accessibility that preserves your existing investment and gives you an immediate return of investment. Before we show you the solution, let's be honest about the symptoms. How do you know if your application is a perfect candidate for this rapid web transformation? Well, let's take this BBC application as our patient and identify those symptoms. 1, do you see the static numbers up on the screen? Well, that means your system lacks real-time connectivity. Data isn't flowing. It's being copied, imported, and manually batched. You're making critical business decisions today based on data that's already a week old because you are waiting for that manual update cycle to finish. 2,
All right.
you can tell that these applications are tied to a local database. In other words, every site is an island. Your data lives on a local SQL server in a specific location. If you have 10 offices, you have 10 data silos. There's no unified view, no centralized control, and no easy access for a remote workforce. It looks pretty ugly, right, Jeff?
It's in my favorite the design and theme. It's in Battleship Gray, and we've taken my design style to heart. Where, hey, if we need some new functionality, add another button at the bottom. And of course, it's got my favorite implementation detail that I think we're all guilty of. It's got a title bar that says Project 1.
There you go. 3, these old systems often bypass your modern security framework. You have individual user credentials, forgotten service accounts, and no interaction with your single sign-on or multi-factor authentication.
And or we know how to do this now. Gosh.
Yeah. Let's go to the other one.
Okay.
And I already talked a little bit about this one. That deep tribal knowledge about the application's unique quirks is sitting in one person's head. If they leave, the application becomes a black box. The code is undocumented, and the thought of trying to modify it is paralyzing. And this is a massive hidden operational cost.
Definitely. Yeah.
So
we need to distribute that knowledge and improve things here. Okay, you've got my attention, Oscar.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And let's talk about our final point. Do you see any Copilot for instant assistance? No, right? So in the age of AI, your data needs to be an active asset. If your data is locked away in a silo proprietary format, it can't fit into your business intelligence tools and generative AI services, such as Copilot. So for the audience, if you check off even 2 of these boxes, you are not just dealing with an old app. You are dealing with a business bottleneck. So how can we solve all 5 of these problems simultaneously without the risk associated with a complete rewrite? Let's explore the technology that enables this seamless transformation, turning this old legacy application into a powerful Power BI dashboard. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is where Gap Velocity AI and Microsoft come together. How? With our hybrid AI approach. So in 2 steps. Step 1, Gap Velocity deterministic AI guarantees precise, explainable code transformations, consistently producing identical outputs from the same input. This consistency is vital for regulated manufacturing environments. Step 2, generative AI under Microsoft ecosystem. Accelerate developer tasks and ensure safe modernization through pattern suggestion. Test scaffolds and refactor hints, leveraging GitHub Copilot and Azure AI. So let's modernize this dashboard. What's happening under the hood? We analyze the legacy code base. We detect patterns and UI data layers. We then modernize this into a cloud-ready .NET architecture while preserving the original business logic. We leverage Entra ID for user authorization and authentication, Key Vault for sensitive data, and App Insights for logging. We conduct automated performance and security tests, and finally, we deploy to Azure, utilizing App Service, AKS, and Azure SQL Managed Instance, configured for telemetry and scalability. How does it sound, Jeff?
I love the very opinionated stack of the services that we already know about and we want to use being deployed to and working there. Now, for you out there, for the viewers out there that are watching now, we pre-recorded a little bit of this part so that we were sure that everything got deployed and ran out there properly and all that, because it does take a little bit more than just 5-10 seconds while Oscar's chatting about the features here. So we did pre-record a little bit of this, but what we're going to show you is a real live application out there.
Okay. In summary, you don't gamble on a rewrite. You leave logic deterministically. Modernize it with Microsoft AI Assist and land in Azure. So look at this beautiful screen.
Now, okay, Oscar, something that I noticed right off the bat, our old application was a Windows application. It was clearly, it was Battleship Gray. It had some of the icons from like a VB6 application. And I'm seeing now we've got a web-based application, and dare I say, you're running this on a Mac. Like now, not only have we taken our app into the cloud, but now we've enabled more platforms, not just mobile, to be able to use our application. I'm seeing things in here now immediately. My eyes are seeing and showing me this is more accessible with higher contrast interactions. There's a couple other things going on under the hood here too.
Yeah, you're right. So as you see, same workflow, new reality, now running in Azure. Now we move from static weekly reports to real-time insights. When your application is modernized to run in a web environment, we can strategically integrate modern data service. This means your data is no longer locked in a local SQL instance. It can be connected to services like Azure Stream Analytics. Do you remember the days of ordering a new server rack every time you open a new branch or plant? Well, those days are over. By transforming your app, we move it to a cloud-native platform by using Azure App Service, AKS, backed by Azure SQL Managed Instance. How do you feel about that?
Oscar, I remember the days where I had to set up a new data center. We were going to put a database just outside of Toronto, and in order for us to do that, we needed to set up leasing with a co-host provider, and we needed to go up and actually spend the time racking and putting the server into the hosting environment and getting everything set up and working locally on it. And then we could come back home to where I live outside of Philadelphia and actually tune and work on that. And you're right. Now, when we do have our applications running on Azure, when we want to set up and have either a backup service in another region, or we want to have a new office that we're going to open in Toronto or somewhere else, it's so easy to just point and say deploy a copy over here. It is a tremendous benefit that our customers can realize.
Yeah. And now that Halloween is pretty close, let me bring you this. Do you remember those security nightmares? Well, we eliminate them by moving the application to a modern cloud architecture. You can instantly integrate it with your corporate identity system, such as Microsoft Entra ID. And this gives you single sign-on and forces multi-factor authentication, leveraging the security policies you already have in place.
Absolutely. We want to make sure folks are secure by default, that we're handling any kind of interactions that you might have with the outside world, we're handling them more securely. And because we're taking advantage of this global architecture, that you can rely on it, that you're using the best practices right from the get-go.
Yeah. Do you see that light bulb below?
Well, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's look at this. That's the big one. Copilot inside the app for frontline questions and decisions. This is the future delivered today. Once your data is unified and your application is modernized, we can seamlessly connect the business logic to generative AI services. So let's ask to our Copilot some question around this dashboard. Let's put, where's my biggest bottleneck today? Okay, let's try it. Wow. As you can see, instant contextual answers pulled from real life telemetry and history. No spreadsheets, no swivel share analysis. Isn't this wonderful, Jeff?
I love it. The interaction, the detail, the insight that it gives is the type of interactions that I want to have, so that I don't have to call on an analyst or my database administrator to go and run little custom queries for me and get data. This is the insight that I want.
Exactly. So to end this, what's missing? Well, all the old issues. No per plan islands, no manual exports, no mystery code, no AI dead ends. You got a modern app on Azure with Copilot native in the workflow. This is it. This is where Gap can take you.
And I'm seeing the live data updates as the application is running. Just tremendous. And there was also a last updated field up in the top right as well that's going to help to ensure that I know I'm seeing the latest information on a dashboard like this. Okay, fantastic set of help that we can get there from our friends at Gap. Let's talk about some next steps.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
So, and the next step, and of course, like I mentioned, our mission in life is to bring that new life to your application. So everything starts with a conversation. People do business with people, so we're happy to have a conversation with you. Here's how you can schedule some call with one of our engineers, so we can give you consultation and have a conversation around your application to see if it fits for this amazing modernization.
So take a picture of that QR code. If you're somebody who likes to type, we'll have somebody drop that link into chat for you. And that link is going to take folks to more than just schedule a talk with an engineer. There's some tools that are available as well that folks can take a look at and start evaluating and seeing exactly what they have and getting some feedback that they can share with the team at Gap.
Absolutely. And talking about that, Jeff, we have our own free tools where you can make an assessment of your application. You can download it in our page through that link, and that'll give you the ability to understand what you have. That is a great input to at least understanding the landscape that you have. Like I discussed, you can see the history of multiple development teams. You wanted to know what's under the hood.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Thank you, Dee, for sharing that link into chat. Now, as we're wrapping up here, friends out there that are watching, if you have any questions that you want to talk about, some high-level questions, we don't want to talk about anything specific to your organizations, drop your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those and talk a little bit more with our friends Ken and Oscar here, and I can chime in and help as well. But I do have some common questions that we have heard that I want to discuss with Ken and Oscar here. And the first question that I do hear from folks who are going through a modernization process, they typically want to do some sort of a pilot program. And when you think about a pilot program, you've got many different applications. Do you recommend folks take a look at either their highest pain point application or maybe the application that has the lowest risk and see how that migration goes? What are your recommendations?
Okay, let me take that one. And particularly, the first thing that we can do is also provide you with a forward deployed engineer, which is a person from one of our engineers who actually make a project with you, either a POC, a couple of screens, something that helps you to see what's happening, or we can do a full blueprint of your application. Now, my personal recommendation is also going to the biggest pain point because that's where the biggest value is. So as soon as you migrate some of these large dependencies, you're going to free up some resources so they can focus to the next one. But either way, we can accommodate. That's part of something. And eventually, if you want your team to do it, we can offer licenses for a product directly.
Cool. I see a question here from someone in chat. Is it suitable to modernize a .NET Framework 4.8 app using web forms like we've had way back in the day, the old ASPX forms? Is it suitable to go to .NET 8 MVC, or should we move forward and consider .NET 10?
I can take that one. So definitely, we are able to do that modernization with no problem at all. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that our tools will basically do the first step by taking your code into a stable baseline. And right after that, we can use generative AI to move into an MVC, architectural patterns, to use the latest frameworks. Actually, our AI migrator tool is targeting .NET 10 very soon. So yeah, that's definitely something that we can do.
Sure. .NET 10 we know is going to be released here in November 2025. Currently, I'm guessing, Oscar, your tools target either .NET 8 because it's an LTS or .NET 9 with the STS.
Exactly. We also target those, but we always keep up to date.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we're really proud on that, Jeff, is every time that there's an update on .NET, we release new versions as soon as it hits the market. So,
Sure. We see the release candidates for the new versions of .NET frameworks, so it's great to see that your team is keeping up with those. There's another question here about MuleSoft. Do we have any capabilities to work with the MuleSoft package?
Well, at this point, we don't have those at this point, but we can definitely work on it. Our tools are not static. We can definitely apply new AI to the new requirements from our customers. So that's something that we could try. And also, we can also try another path in order to achieve what the customer wants. So yeah, we can put an engineer in front of you and try it out for sure.
Okay. And I do see a question about costs there. Costs are, of course, a very subjective thing depending on size of an application, complexity of an application. You could have an application that has hundreds of pages, but those hundreds of pages do the exact same thing 25 different ways. So talking about cost at a very high level is kind of out of bounds for this type of conversation. That's where some of the evaluation tools that Ken was mentioning are going to help give you a little bit of insight to help get you to some of that discussion that somebody can follow up and chat about.
Absolutely. And by the way, the first step, even before the cost, I will say understanding what's underneath the cover is critical, right? Like as you mentioned, Jeff, it's not the same migrating standard controls to very customized C++ controls during co-interop, right? It's quite different.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I have another question here saying about how migrating to that web app produced amazing visuals. Are these based on DevExpress controls, Telerik controls, or something similar? And if somebody does do a migration and use your tools to get there, the Gap tools to get there, do they need to buy licenses to DevExpress or Telerik or whoever that control vendor is?
Yeah, I can take that one. Actually, let's put an example. We can take BV6 desktop applications and take it to Blazor. And actually, what we use in there is Telerik for Blazor. And indeed, yeah, the customer needs to pay for the license. So that's part of like the whole tools that we need in there. But the most important thing, the most complex part that we already solve is that we already have mappings from BV6, legacy, all components to Telerik for Blazor. So the hard work is pretty much done, Jeff, from our side.
Okay. Absolutely. So, and you mentioned Blazor. That kind of leads into the next question we have here. Should folks migrate to Blazor or MVC? And what do you recommend?
Let me take that one because I'm a huge Blazor fan. Actually, I need a share big of this side of Blazor. Blazor is a fantastic technology. And in my opinion, this is the newest stack that you want to focus, right? Because it gives you that web-like interface. The code is really readable. And at the same time, you're taking the same framework of C#. So it's fantastic. It helps you make the application multiple components, eventually add microservices to that mix. So my recommendation is always Blazor. Actually, one of our migrators is defined for that. And we have very amazing success when it comes to performance and scalability of the application.
Cool. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Blazor as well. There's a lot of options that folks can take a look at there. Next question we have here is, what does the test effort look like after folks modernize their applications?
Let me take that as well. It depends on the application. There are very specific applications, for example, let's talk about healthcare, right? You want to be absolutely sure that all the data that comes, it actually outputs exactly the way you want it, right? Where people's at risk. So depending on your business, that is the portion of the time that might require more or less time, but it's based on your specific needs, right? Our recommendation is always, we have a guideline of around how many test cases per line of code, but again, that's only a guideline that will get you to a point where you can start the UAT. But testing is very important, and it depends and it varies to application, but typically it escalates with the size of the application.
Certainly. And because you're going to be getting into a web environment that can be deployed out to Azure, then we can start talking about using tools like Playwright that can help instrument our browser and make it a little bit easier to build scripts to automate and step through those end-to-end tests that are so important to ensure you've got a valid migration of your application and going forward, maintaining the health of your applications.
Absolutely. And we can include it as part of the continuous integration, continuous delivery, right, which is fantastic. You deploy, run the tests automatically, and move to production.
Yeah. There is a comment here about asking, well, can't I just do this with regular GitHub Copilot?
I love that one.
Go on, Oscar.
Yeah, let me take this one, Kenneth. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So imagine you as a developer that you want to GitHub Copilot to start migrating code, portions of the code, and all of a sudden, when you migrate it once and you want to migrate it again, you get different results. That's not a good alternative for developers. What we offer is a first phase in which we use our deterministic AI to create a solid baseline in order to work from there. So yeah, we can use GitHub Copilot, but for refining, for adding new features to the application. But for the big lift, for the heavy lift, we use our AI deterministic tools in order to do that.
Yeah,
there you go.
when you're talking about a migration, Oscar, the context for an application is going to be so large that GitHub Copilot's not going to be able to get it's not going to be able to get the entire context loaded up the same way that your tool set with a specialized set of deterministic AI tools are going to be able to move in and work. You mentioned during the demos that there are tools that have been built and polished with 20, 30 years worth of knowledge there as an initial pass to do that bit of migration, and then bring through the AI as a second pass to do those upgrades. That's a great approach that is going to ensure that, exactly what you're saying, consistent results. I love hearing that.
Exactly.
I hear some folks here, a couple questions about using the VB upgrade tool set to upgrade from VB6 to .NET. Has that tool been enhanced to include AI, or is this a net new product integrating AI?
Let me take that. Our deterministic migrator is still offline, capable to deploy. That's one of the attractive part for the large enterprises, because you don't want to expose a lot of things to the cloud. So that part remains the same. Is the next one, which is the tools extra that we're building, racks or custom tools for accelerating the migration. So it's 2 plus 1 plus 1 equals 4 or 6 or 7 in this case.
Very cool. So it is a little bit of a two-step process to the next question there, where doing a deterministic upgrade from VB6 and then that second pass to make sure everything is all the things that it doesn't recognize, that it doesn't know how to do, that custom code, it's going to get that updated.
Absolutely.
There's a question here about test projects. So if the legacy code, if my legacy application contains a test project, is that test project also taken into account during the migration process?
Oh,
we treat code that. Yeah. Go on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, actually, that's why we always recommend to run, even before going into the whole migration, to run our body insight assessment tool. That tool will let us know all the code base that is in the folder that you're uploading. And from there, we can decide what do we want to migrate or not. There will be times in which, running a test project might make sense to migrate it, but there may be times that it won't. So, it's up to the customer in order to migrate it. But we can definitely, pick by hand the ones that we want to migrate.
Yep. So then how is maintenance handled? Is that, does the code that it delivers, that the tool set delivers, is that difficult to manage? Oscar, as a lead engineer on this, you've got some insight into that code that's generated. What's the maintenance look like on that going forward?
Oh, definitely the maintenance is pretty straightforward, right? We want to still to keep the same structure that we got from the source code, but at the same time, we are using the latest pattern from the target that we are using, from the target framework that we are using. So it's a very maintainable code, and we are aware. These modernization projects is not only about migrating them to a new target, but also about enhancing them and adding new features. So we definitely we guarantee that the code could be easy maintainable, Jeff, because more work will come along.
Yeah. There's a question here. I'll take this one. Doesn't Microsoft have migration tools for desktop apps? How does that work? The upgrade assistant that the folks at Microsoft have available, the .NET team is building, they help you go from earlier versions of .NET to the current version of .NET, and they don't shift your framework. So if you've got something that was built in Windows Forms back in .NET Framework 2.0, it will migrate it forward as Windows Forms in .NET 9, eventually .NET 10 after that release. So it won't do that platform shift that the Gap tools will do. It will migrate things from Xamarin to .NET MAUI, but if we need to take those things and we want to get those Standalone desktop applications, we want to get them into the cloud and get them running in a shared architecture out there. The Gap tools are where to go with that. So, okay. Can your migration tools be run locally and offline? I think we touched on that briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. All our deterministic AI migrators by default runs locally on your machine. Actually, that's one of the requisites that we have is that we need to have an environment where the application runs so we can detect dependencies and all that. But that's one of the advantages in the corporate world because those tools do not connect to the ISAR world. You can put it in one machine. Sometimes even in your desktop application where you're running your application, you can run it over there and port the code completely off.
Cool. Yeah. There's a question here about scaling out and migrating. So when we migrate applications to Blazor, how do we scale that out? Considering the nature of Blazor server, how do you achieve this with app service, with AKS, with virtual machines? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, for this topic, what we recommend in order to preserve that type of architecture, we need to rely on a sticky sessions feature in order to be able to scale. Why? Because we need to handle the session all along from the front end and the back end. So that will be our approach in order to scale.
All right. So a question that just came in. What scope is there to improve the code as part of migration? So not just migrating code and taking that same structure of code from VB6, from code that was written back in 2005 and .NET Framework 2. What about upgrading and tuning and taking advantage of new features and new code techniques? Is it optimizing the code production, or is it just looking to input and output and just move the exact same code forward?
I can take that one. For the first phase, that definitely will look just like you mentioned, Jeff. It will look pretty much as the source one with the new target. But when we get to that time, we are in the chance to actually make all the improvements that we want to do. One of the things that usually happens is that when we are migrating from a desktop application to a web application, there are going to be components that might not work. There are going to be features that don't make sense in the web. So we definitely need to make some refactors, use new frameworks, use new components. So in that time, whenever we end the initial migration, we can do all the enhancements that the customer wants. So yeah, there's time to be creative, definitely.
All right, let me go to one more question here, and then I think we'll wrap it up. So when folks do go through and work through this modernization process, can they choose the target Azure services, or does the migration tool kind of specify it? So maybe folks want to use Azure Container Apps instead of Azure Kubernetes Service. Is there flexibility there in setting the direction, the target that they want to go to?
Yeah, they have the chance to actually target what they want. Just like I spoke previously, whenever we migrate the code, we're in a position to basically take all the paths that we want in terms of services that we want to apply to the migrated application. So it's a matter of discussing what's the best for the application. You know, there are times where we want to use a specific tool or service, but before taking that decision, we are here to assess you and give you the best recommendations on the services that makes more sense for you. So that's actually part of GAP's support for this type of modernization projects.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask, does GAP also support AWS in deployment?
Indeed, we do, actually.
Yeah, there you go. So we have all the questions written down there. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. This was a great discussion. I want to make sure that folks click through and they get that link to Gap Velocity AI that was down there. Make sure that you follow up. It's linked in chat. We have a list of the various questions, and we'll get back to anybody that needs a follow-up afterwards. Thank you so much for joining us today. A big thanks, Ken and Oscar. Really appreciate you joining us. My name is Jeff Fritz. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye.